Hello, everyone. Welcome to the big show. Letitia James is in for it. Letitia James is about to have her you-know-what handed to her, okay? Because this is going down, and she can't do anything about it, and boy, is she mad. I mean, she's going to probably try and send another campaign thing or two all about it, but I'm telling you, it's over.
I will not fear Donald Trump. I have steel in my backbone. And the reality is I will not allow this person, Donald Trump, who unfortunately is a broken man, to get in the way of progress and to separate us.
Well, you know what? He's going to do exactly what he's doing, which is run the country, Letitia. You're going to get bogged down in all that. And guess what? The Court of Appeals is going to humiliate you again. Letitia James, about to be humiliated. Wait for it.
At the end of the day, the documentary evidence demonstrated that, in fact, he falsely inflated his assets to basically enrich himself and his family. He continued to persistently engage in fraud. The numbers don't lie.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to know how she got $15 million, or reported $15 million that she's actually worth. Those numbers may not lie either. Listen, she's lying. She's ill-informed. She's way out over her skis. She doesn't actually understand how lending works, and this is going to get her in a lot of trouble. I'm going to get to what the court is saying in just a moment, but first, look who made an appearance there at the New York Stock Exchange because he's on the cover of Time, Man of the Year, $1.
Leader of the free world. He's going to ring the bell here in about 20 seconds. An historic moment at the New York Stock Exchange as we get this opening bell rung by the president-elect, Donald Trump.
Big deal. Again, the Man of the Year there, Time magazine. Also, another story I want to get to a little bit later in the show. Did CNN get caught in some kind of fake news story? Because Elon Musk's X, Community Notes, is calling out a key reporter who just reported this.
After 3 months in a windowless cell, he can finally see the sky.
I'll tell you why Community Notes is not buying it. Plus, we're going to talk about Jay-Z. Yeah. The latest to get wrapped up in this whole thing with Diddy. You knew this one was eventually coming, right? Okay, we'll talk about that too, believe it or not. Letitia James, however, is where we begin the day. It looks increasingly like Letitia is about to get into a whole lot of trouble. She may be disbarred. She's likely to be out of a job. She says none of this is bothersome to her. No, because you see, she was born to take on Trump for some reason.
I will not fear Donald Trump. I have steel in my backbone. And the reality is I will not allow this person, Donald Trump, who unfortunately is a broken man, to get in the way of progress and to separate us.
Oh, well, oh boy, Letitia. You know what? You just keep saying that. You keep saying that. You have no case. You know it. The Court of Appeals knows it, and yet you have this opportunity. Donald Trump actually did something kind of gracious. He offered you the opportunity. He requested that you actually rescind your lawsuit in the spirit of unity. You refused to do that. So guess what? Now you're going to get handed something and more. Just to back up for a moment, everyone, just so you understand, because it's hard to keep track. I know there's like a lot of cases. There's a lot of them. Couple federal. Those both got dropped by Jack Smith. Of course, you had the Alvin Bragg. That one went nowhere, absolutely nowhere. Of course, Alvin Bragg, we're going to get to him in a moment because he's also in hot water, in part because of the Daniel Penny case, but also this one. And then Letitia, well, you also had Fannie Willis. She's about to go to jail, incidentally. We'll get to that. But let's start here with Letitia. Letitia somehow thought that because Donald Trump may have not been entirely accurate in terms of the square footage count of one apartment he had there at Trump Tower, nor the square footage or worth of Mar-a-Lago as far as she saw it, because, you know, she's thinking that the place is worth 18 mil, while he's like, wait a second, it made 56 last year and there's no debt on the property. Why would it be worth only 18 million? Anyway, she's trying to come in between his lender, which in this case was Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank made out like a bandit. They made like some $100 million. So they're not complaining. They said it was one of the best deals they ever did. But she's complaining because she's like, wait a second, you inflated the square footage and you said that Mar-a-Lago was worth X when I really think it was only worth 18, 19 million. And she's somehow insisting here that the numbers don't lie. I mean, she may lie, right? But she's saying numbers don't lie. I'm sorry, honey, baby, you're wrong.
At the end of the day, the documentary evidence demonstrated that, in fact, he falsely inflated his assets to basically enrich himself and his family. He continued to persistently engage in fraud. The numbers don't lie.
Yeah, numbers don't lie. Just you. You're the only one that lies around here, and you're lying because you're trying to help your case. So again, just to back up, this is the situation where she's out saying, you know, it's worth this, and Donald Trump's like, no, it's worth that. But again, there's no victim in the case. Like, so none of it matters. So when she went to court initially, and the Court of Appeals is about to just send this thing flying, okay, and her reputation with it, already there are calls for her to be disbarred, and that's going to be entertained as a result of this. And when you hear what some of the judges are saying, you can see that they're already saying, wait a second, what do we do when we get some super litigious, crazy person like Attorney General Letitia James? What do you do to curb her influence and this rabidness, right? When she's just trying to target someone so specifically. I say the short answer is you disbar her. And that's how you basically dissuade future DAs, AGs from being so highly politically motivated. Mike Nifong, remember in the Duke lacrosse rape story? I spent like 6 weeks on the ground covering that case. I never, ever believed that woman, not for 1 second. I don't know, I just had this like sixth sense that it was all wrong. Well, he got disbarred. He got disbarred because he got too aggressive in terms of how he was trying to go after those kids. And this is Letitia James, similar situation where she's too aggressive in how she's trying to go after one Donald Trump. It's going to come back to haunt her. But let's go back to the case for a second. This is why the appeals court is throwing it out. David Freeman, one of the judges there on the Court of Appeals, the Second Court of Appeals, is saying, well, wait a second, you know what? You're going through all these issues like square footage, and you're saying, well, he inflated the square footage. By the way, it's on Deutsche Bank's, you know, it's the onus is on Deutsche Bank to actually figure out whether the property and the collateral is worth what he says it's worth. I mean, think about when you refinance your house, right? And the bank comes in and they try and figure out how much your house is worth. That's what the bank does. Deutsche Bank is pretty sophisticated at doing that. But David Freeman, this one attorney, this one judge, is like, I'm sorry, the square footage on the place, the bankers testified that was literally the least important factor of everything that they were looking at in terms of how they were going to value this. So why are you hanging your whole case on it, lady?
If you look at what the Deutsche Bank witnesses testified to, Haig said that the financial strength of the guarantor affects the pricing in terms of the loan, and it affects whether the private wealth management group would be allowed to do this deal at all.
Doesn't Mr. Haig testify that there were 14 factors and this was the least important factor?
Well, certainly there are multiple factors that go into the risk assessment, but both for materiality and for disgorgement, the issue is not whether there's only one factor. There's often a lot of factors that are being considered. For materiality, it's whether it's important to the overall total mix of information, and this was absolutely critical to the overall mix of information, not only because they were looking specifically at what the net worth was in order to decide the terms of the loan.
No. It wasn't critical. That's why Deutsche Bank said of the 14 different factors, this was the least important. The least important. Judith Vale arguing on behalf of Letitia, because, you know, once it gets to the appeals court, apparently Letitia's not bright enough to argue in front of the 5 judges at the appellate court. So then David Freeman also says, hang on. You know, like, these are sophisticated parties. It's not like anybody is like some naive kid off the street getting duped. This is Deutsche Bank, for goodness sakes. This is what they do. They are in the business of lending, and they are in the business of evaluating high net worth clients like Donald Trump. Here we go.
The defendant's statements were not meant for ordinary people. They were directed at some of the most sophisticated individuals and entities in business.
Well, if the court wants to use the standard of an objectively reasonable counterparty, sophisticated counterparty, fine. They had a capacity or tendency to deceive that sophisticated party as well, because these misstatements and omissions were about objective facts that were extremely important and that any reasonable counterparty would want to know. Any sophisticated, reasonable counterparty would want to know that the defendants were valuing an apartment based on 20,000 square feet more than it really was, based on pretending that rent regulations on certain apartments didn't exist, based on pretending that the Mar-a-Lago restrictions didn't exist. Your Honor asked about that. the trial court was very clear that it was not coming up with a magical valuation for itself. The problem with the Mar-a-Lago valuation is similar to what happened with the rent-regulated apartments. The restrictions in the deed are there. They are an objective fact. They are very restrictive. And even defendant's own expert at summary judgment, this is at 16502 of the record, agreed that the restrictions would decrease the value of Mar-a-Lago, but defendants valued it as if those restrictions didn't exist at all.
Okay, but again, Deutsche Bank was okay with that. Just saying, okay, so the issue here is that it was a historic property, and because it was a historic property, it didn't have the same sort of potential for, you can't just demo the thing and start all over again, and so somehow that affects the valuation. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. You could argue that the historic significance of the property actually gives it more value, right? I mean, again, until the deal's done, until it's actually sold, who is Letitia James to decide that it's only worth $19 million when that's like basically, I don't know, half of Joy Behar's house. Joy Behar, in all seriousness, putting her Sag Harbor 4,000 square foot little Victorian on a little postage stamp lot in the Hamptons on sale for $10.5 million. I'm telling you, if somebody wants to be crazy enough to buy Joy's little postage stamp little Victorian for $10.5 million, that's their own business. But is Letitia James going to come in and regulate that too? In other words, he's saying, I think the value of my home is X. Letitia's like, no, it's Y. But Deutsche Bank comes flying in and says, no, it's X. And we're going to lend him money based on our belief that it's worth X. And yet, Letitia's in the way, which is what these judges are saying. Like, this makes literally no sense. No sense, because it's a private situation, a private case, which has no bearing on the public at all. There's no victim. Here we go.
It was using...
I'm sorry, but what's being described sounds an awful lot like a potential commercial dispute between private actors.
Well, to go back to the first question about whether there's other examples of this, there are other examples of this. In the First American case, the Attorney General brought a 6312 case where the transaction at issue was between a very big bank, Wells Fargo, and a professional appraisal firm.
But it wasn't the concern there that the public would ultimately be negatively impacted and affected by what those corporate actors were doing.
And that concern is here as well, because when you have hidden risks getting injected into the market, that hurts the market and honest participants in the market. And the legislature also decided, contrary to what defendants think, that making sure that business in New York stays honest is the way to attract and keep business in New York.
To that point, the Executive Law 6312, I just want to read a section of it. Well, not exactly, but was enacted to promote and protect.
By the way,
injected into the market.
Same question.
Sorry, this woman, she's the only one of the five judges, I should point out, that has any sympathy for the Letitia James side of this case. I'm just adding that.
312. I just want to read a section of it. Well, not exactly, but was enacted to promote and protect honesty and integrity. It's the same question I asked the other side. In commercial marketplaces in New York, by stopping fraudulent and illegal businesses. To accomplish this purpose, the statute authorizes the Attorney General to bring civil enforcement proceedings on behalf of the people whenever any person shall engage in repeated fraudulent or illegal acts or otherwise demonstrate persistent fraud or illegality in the carrying on, conducting, or transacting of business. I don't read harm or threat of harm in that, but the other side is saying that that is to be read into the statute. Are there any cases where the language harm or threat to harm limits the scope of the Attorney General?
No, Your Honor, not as to liability, and not in cases like this where what the Attorney General is seeking is injunctive relief and disgorgement.
So I would add that this is so insane that we're even here talking about this. Letitia James and this judge, Erdogan, they want $485 million. That's the latest and greatest figure for the people of New York from Donald Trump. They're not backing down. So now the Court of Appeals has to throw the case out, which is what they're now prepared to do. And now they're just trying to address this other issue of why is it that somebody like Letitia James has so much power. Think about this. Before I go to that part from the court, think about what she was saying.
4 days after a judge ordered Donald Trump to pay $355 million for a decade of fraud, New York Attorney General Letitia James says she's prepared to do everything she can to make sure the former president pays his fine, including, she told us, seizing the buildings that bear his name.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
Yeah, because she wants to bankrupt him. It's like her mission in life. You've seen the clips. He's this, he's that, he's this, he's that. He's too white, too male, too pale. I mean, this is Letitia James. It's actually really, really scary. Like, really scary. And the idea that they can just go after someone because they hate them so specifically, or him so specifically, is quite concerning. One of the other points that Trump's lawyers have made on this one is that Letitia has no case because of the ruling that came down from the Supreme Court, and that the Constitution, in terms of the federal law itself, prevents, quote, state prosecutors from proceeding against the sitting president in any way. And that's actually true. So what she doesn't get is that she has no leg to stand on here, and that she's in violation of federal law because the Constitution says you can't go after the president, lady. But, she's rabid. I mean, she's absolutely positively rabid. Let's go back to the courtroom where David Friedman, one of the judges, is saying, why? Why does a woman have this kind of power?
You're pointing to Ernst & Young, you're pointing to First American. Ernst & Young, you're dealing with the collapse of Lehman Brothers. First American, you're dealing with an action brought against an appraiser who overvalued properties at the behest of a lender, perpetrating a scheme to induce unsophisticated consumers into taking out home loans that they could not afford. It hardly seems that justifies bringing an action to protect Deutsche Bank against President Trump, which is what you have here. I mean, you've got two really sophisticated parties in which no one lost any money, and that was the point of my initial question. Every case that you cite involved where there was damage to consumers, damage to the marketplace. You've got a scheme to get unsophisticated consumers to take out home loans. You got a collapse of Lehman Brothers. You don't have anything like that here.
Well, first of all, Your Honor, the statute doesn't require that whatsoever for liability. And the statute is written broadly because the legislature wants the Attorney General to go in and stop fraud and illegality.
Counsel, I think you hear underneath all these questions, the question of mission creep. Has 6312 morphed into something that it was not meant to do? And that's something you must address, because there has to be some limitation on what the Attorney General can do in interfering in these private transactions, as Justice Friedman said, that where people don't claim harm. So what is the limiting principle?
There is no limiting principle. No limiting principle. It's just Letitia James has this whim that she's going to go after her political enemy, and she's getting directions from on top there at the Biden White House, and the Soros team, and the whole club is in on this one, right? You got to go get Trump. So the whole mission is get Trump. And so she's full speed ahead and is continuing with that full speed ahead despite being in violation of the U.S. Constitution. So these lawyers, these judges, they're saying we need to protect against this, right? Like going forward, like we can't have people like Letitia James doing this kind of insane stuff. We need some guardrails. We need some parameters, for goodness sakes.
Back to Justice Moulton's point about line drawing, because I do think that is very important in this case. You know the history of this statute. It's passed under then AG Javits, and then was really amplified by AG Lefkowitz over the years. And when I went back and read the bill jackets, the common thread was always we need greater power. The AG needs greater powers as the people's lawyer to protect consumers, civil rights, and the environment. And so again, with that sort of historical backdrop to this law, how do we draw a line, or at least put up some guardrails to know when the AG is operating well within her admittedly broad sphere of 6312, and when she is going into an area that wasn't intended for her jurisdiction.
I got to tell you, in other words, this is not intended for her jurisdiction. This is a private matter, and this is why the Court of Appeals wants to throw it out. And yet she's unwilling. What, is she going to be some kind of martyr here? She enjoys being made a fool of. She wants to continue following this forward. She's arguing that in the case of, I guess, Bill Clinton, when Paula Jones was suing him, that case was allowed to go forward, and therefore that was an example of a president versus a state issue. The Trump team is kind of just saying it's pathetic. Her statement is sad and weak. I would just get back to the actual case itself. I mean, aside from, the Constitution saying that you cannot go after a sitting president this way, I would still get back to, she has no case. What are we doing talking about this to begin with? This is all because someone had a vendetta against one Donald Trump. And that's all she's about. I mean, it's really pretty gross. I mean, this is the soundbite, right? This is gross.
Venomous. We will fight back to your attempt to bring Trumpism to New York City.
He's called me disgraceful.
Of the fact that they stole the Supreme Court seat. An illegitimate president.
Okay, on and on and on. He's illegitimate. I'm going to go get him. If you just elect me, I will go get him for you. And just the other day, she's out saying, I'm so proud of the 100 legal actions that my team brought against him when he was president. I mean, she just really wants to take on the system. And what is this, anarchy? I guess. They're really into anarchy over there on the left.
You see, between 2019 and 2021, the Office of the Attorney General took nearly 100 legal actions against the previous Trump administration, including when he attempted to cap the state and local tax, and when he sought to eliminate funds and grants for law enforcement officers here in the state of New York. We fought to preserve DACA and protect the Affordable Care Act. We fought to prevent...
You keep fighting on that because you know what? Your own governor's not with you, honey. Kathy Hochul coming out saying she's all on board with ICE and that she's going to make sure everyone gets turned over to ICE. I mean, you look at the 700,000 migrants in New York City alone, just in New York City, 60,000 of whom, nearly 60,000, are known to be criminals. And Kathy Hochul, the governor, is like, okay, here you go. Because it really isn't politically expedient for her to kind of stand in the way of that, especially given the crime that we now have in New York City. Anyway, Donald Trump having put this out on Truth Social before he became president, or president-elect, I should say, this witch hunt by Letitia James is so bad for New York City and state. Companies are refusing to come in and invest so long as it is outstanding, and others are leaving because of it, and nothing can stop them. The negative impact on New York State and jobs is like no other case that has been prosecuted in many years. A total disaster. Letitia James knows this, but she doesn't care. To her, it's just a political campaign. So sad for our country, and he says that well. That's really what it's about. It's a political campaign. It's so that she can raise money, so that she can try and elevate her profile and get elected again. And she's got big aspirations. Okay, she wants to take over the mayorship in New York City. I don't think that's going to be happening. I think actually Eric Adams is increasingly looking more and more secure in his slot. So what is she going to do? Oh, is she going to run for president? Maybe that's in the playbook. So she's using this as an opportunity to amplify herself on a national scale for her own political well-being. What kind of legal system, think about it, do you have? If that's what a country comes down to. People just trying to push their way ahead and knock others out of the game, and in the process, because they can identify an enemy, somehow they rise up, they gain more power. That can't be. And again, you go back to the Constitution, which does not allow for this. The Supreme Court just ruled on it, for goodness sakes, which is why I love Mike Davis here, one of the attorneys for Donald Trump, and he was on. I've shown you guys this before, but it seems like a good punctuation mark to everything I'm saying here. Mike Davis on with Benny Johnson saying, you know what, honey, you keep doing that, we're going to put your fat ass in prison. Excuse me.
Let me just say this to Big Tish James, the New York Attorney General. I dare you to try to continue your lawfare against President Trump in his second term. Because listen here, sweetheart, we're not messing around this time, and we will put your fat ass in prison for conspiracy against rights, and I promise you that. So think long and hard before you want to violate President Trump's constitutional rights or any other American's constitutional rights. It's not going to happen again.
No, but she's not afraid.
I will not fear Donald Trump. I have steel in my backbone. And the reality is I will not allow this person, Donald Trump, who unfortunately is a broken man, to get in the way of progress and to separate us.
Woo! Listen, she's done. It's over. The question now becomes, is she disbarred over this? I firmly believe she should be. I think this is a gross exaggeration of her power. She's amplified her power. She's manipulated the system to amplify her power. And by all means, we need to end her career over this. Letitia James cannot continue as an attorney to represent anyone. Already, Elise Stefanik has called for that. The representative of New York, as an attorney herself, is demanding that the Bar Association revoke Letitia James's law license. And when the Court of Appeals issues this edict to toss this whole thing, that's exactly what's going to happen. So mark my words, this is the next step. This is the next layer in this case. Yes, she will be humiliated. She will try and spin this as somehow, oh, I'm taking on the system. And she will try to use this to her political advantage, of course. But she's actually going to be in a lot of trouble from a professional standpoint. Imagine this. They want to charge him $500 million. I mean, these people are absolutely nuts for a private transaction where there is no victim. And Deutsche Bank is like, yeah, we'd do the deal again all day till Sunday. And then again, right? So what case do you have other than you hate the guy? That's not enough. Not in the United States of America, thank you very much. It's just not. More on that, more on somebody who just wants to hate someone because of the color of their skin and therefore bring an entire case and try and put him away for the rest of his life. I'm talking about Daniel Penny. That's another prosecutor that needs to go. But first, a quick shout out for my investment research company that I started with my dear friend Rob. It's called 76 Research. You can go to 76research.com and take a look at some of our portfolios. We have 10 to 15 stocks in each one of them. You can also just sign up for our free guide to investing in this Trump boom economy, because listen, good times ahead. We told you about crypto, did we not? I mean, I know a lot of people out there don't really like it, and I keep saying just use it as like, you know, if you had Vegas money for the weekend, instead of going to Vegas, maybe take a little bit and put it into Bitcoin and just watch, wait, and see. There's great ETFs now that you can get in and out of very, very low cost. Anyway, that's part of what we talk about in investinmaga.com. Go to investinmaga.com. It's the free guide. You can check it out. Lots of information in there for you. But let's get to Alvin Bragg, because Alvin Bragg is another one that's increasingly looking like he's in deep trouble. You saw the Daniel Penny case. Very, very good news. Daniel Penny on a celebratory tour right now with just such relief, right? Because they wanted to put him away and put him away for good. Well, Alan Dershowitz, known, famed legal, constitutional law scholar, criminal defense attorney out of Harvard University. I like Alan a lot. I've interviewed him a lot, including on this show over the years. And he's fair. Okay, he's fair. It gets him in trouble sometimes with various crowds, but he's very, very fair. And I want you to hear what he's saying about Alvin Bragg because of, one, the case that he brought against Donald Trump with the whole Stormy Daniels thing, and then two, this case against Penny. He thinks the guy needs to be disbarred. And you know what? He's right.
Sir, did you want to start off with just the immediate reaction to the not guilty verdict in the Daniel Penny case?
I have to admit I was a little surprised. Having hung on the higher count, I was not expecting that they would so quickly acquit on the lower count. It probably shows that there were only one or two people in the original high count that hung based on their desire to see a conviction. So I think it's a good thing. Now, I think the next step has to be the removal of Alvin Bragg from the role of district attorney. He is a disgrace to the office. The two cases he brought should never have been brought. The case against Donald Trump, which was made up out of whole cloth, which to my mind involves unethical, unprofessional conduct by Bragg, and also this case, which should never have been brought either. He brought it only because of the racial component to the case and because of pressures from Black Lives Matter and other groups on the outside, both white and black radicals who wanted these cases to be brought, wanted this case to be brought, and who are going to continue to complain, even though there were obviously black members of the jury who voted to acquit as well.
Professor, what do you make of how quickly they came back with this verdict? And also, too, there's the civil case that he's also facing, too, Daniel Penny. Does that, given that he's not guilty on the criminal case, what happens to the civil case as well?
It'll be thrown out. There's no case there. Civilly, the only thing that will happen is that Penny will get an enormous amount of discovery and will get much more information that we don't now have about the alleged victim in the case. So my prediction is it will be withdrawn. I don't think they'll go any further. I don't think they'll get any kind of a verdict. Now, maybe the city will settle if they sue the city as well. If I were the lawyers for the alleged victim, I'd probably think I'd have a better shot of getting some money from the city, which was sympathetic, obviously, to the victim, than from a poor former Marine who probably doesn't have a lot of money. So I don't think the civil case is going anywhere. This is not O.J. Simpson, where the civil case won after the criminal case lost. There was no case here to bring it all, either civil or criminal.
But I'm just going to say, and our thanks to Newsmax for that clip, I'm just going to say, Daniel Penny should be able to sue. And Donald Trump should be able to sue. I mean, how is it fair that they can go out and seek to destroy your life and you have no recourse here? I'd be suing Letitia James. I'd be suing Alvin Bragg. I'd be suing Fannie Willis if she doesn't wind up in jail first. Fannie Willis cruising right straight to jail. I'm telling you, that Fannie's going to wind up in the slammer faster than you can imagine. This one I'm talking about.
Are you aware that Fulton County requires you to disclose any relationship with someone that you're doing business with? I'm not aware, and I know often that things are confused with state constitutional officers in county, but I'm not aware.
Not aware. So she was having this little thing, shall we say, with a married man named Nathan Wade. And Nathan Wade wound up getting divorced from his wife, and then the whole thing got blown open. And we found out that Fannie Willis was using taxpayer money to pay some $600,000 to Nathan Wade, which kind of complicated things and actually put her entire office and the entire investigation in jeopardy. So that's where that stands. But one of the questions that keeps coming up is just what kind of connection did Fannie, or Alvin Bragg for that matter, or Letitia James have with the Biden administration and the Biden White House? Was Merrick Garland running the whole thing? A lot of people would like to know, including one Matt Gaetz, who pushed Garland on this repetitively and kept getting stonewalled. The reason I say Fannie's going to be in the slammer is because we've learned that Nathan Wade actually was going to the White House and he was having meetings, allegedly, about this case. So if that's the situation, then she should be willing to testify about that, right? But she's shutting down. I'm not going to, you can subpoena me, I'm not going to testify. Well, the last time that happened, the person went to jail for it. I can think of one, Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro as well. They tried to get them to testify. Remember about J6? And they're like, I'm not gonna be, you can subpoena me, I'm not gonna go in and testify. Well, guess what? They went straight to jail. So your Fannie's gonna be in the slammer faster than you can imagine. You can sit there, I mean, it's gross. She's a lawyer, for God's sakes, and she's like, I'm not gonna testify. Come on, we need to know the answers specifically to this. Listen to what Matt Gaetz is asking. Okay, I don't have it, but that's all right. I'll summarize for you. He's pushing Garland in the soundbite I wanted to show you from about 9 months ago, and he's pushing him hard and he's saying, listen, I would like to know, was there any interaction between you guys in these various states? And Garland's like kind of just evading. And the idea is, like, Matt Gaetz, you're somehow accusing us of some kind of, this is conspiratorial. How dare you suggest that we do all this? He's like, fine, you can accuse us of being conspiratorial, but I need to know, where are the records? Why aren't you guys giving us the records? Why are you stonewalling all of this? And so this is what I come back to, guys. Everybody talks about retribution. Is this retribution? No, this is not. And actually, Donald Trump isn't really even wired that way. But I think that people around him need to pay attention to what went down, and we need to get answers, and we need to figure it out. Why? Because it should never have happened, and it should never, ever happen again to anyone on either side. It is not right to use and manipulate the federal or state government against your political opponents. It's so fundamentally wrong and stands at odds with everything that we believe in as a society. So this isn't retribution. Jim Jordan was asked this question actually by my former co-host. We used to host a show together for a while on CNBC. He's now over at Fox Business, and he used to be in the White House on the economic team, one Larry Kudlow. Let's listen.
Let me ask you something else that's very amusing to me, but I don't understand it. Democrats are now asking Joe Biden for a preemptive pardon, okay, of Liz Cheney, Adam Schiff, and Tony Fauci. Well, what is this all about? Preemptive pardons, for heaven's sake.
Well. Plus, didn't they just criticize? Well, they went after some of my colleagues who they said asked for pardons. I don't know that they ever did, but some of my colleagues who supposedly that they went after them, and now they're doing the same thing. This is ridiculous. Donald Trump has never been about retribution. Right. Donald Trump has been stopping these agencies from being weaponized against we the people, and frankly from being weaponized against him, and all the lawfare that we saw unfold. Where Fonnie Willis, Alvin Bragg, and Jack Smith went after President Trump on ridiculous things that we all know were just that, ridiculous. So that's always been President Trump's position. But this is just the left continuing their crazy antics and crazy, concerns.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. Trump, right. Success is the best revenge. Success will unify the country. Yep. Success will end the divisions in the country. He said it 1,000,000 times. He never went after Hillary Clinton years ago. He keeps saying that. And people are, you know what? They're projecting all these left-wing motives.
Exactly.
That's all they're doing. One other point, Mr. Jim Jordan.
That's fair. And, Larry wants to move forward. Everybody wants to move forward. I get it. Donald Trump wants to move forward, too. And they are projecting to a certain extent. And it's sort of funny because let me show you something. This is a great little clip. This is Adam Schiff back in 2018, 2019, and then him in 2024 vis-a-vis the pardon thing. I mean, the pardon stuff is kind of crazy what they're doing, but take a peek.
On the day Donald Trump leaves office, the Justice Department may indict him.
Very strongly in favor of indicting the president when he is out of office.
I don't think the incoming president should be threatening his political opponents with jail time. That's not the kind of talk we should hear from a president in a democracy.
Okay. Right. So they're going around, they're trying to sort of pin this on Trump and say, well, we got to pardon everyone because if we don't, Donald Trump's going to put them in jail. But he has, as Jim Jordan and Larry Kudlow just alluded to, he said over and over again, that's not really where he wants to go or what he's about. He told another one of my former co-hosts, Howie, this just before he was getting elected. He's like, look, I'm not about retribution. I actually just want to make the country a better place.
I think they're unethical, but who knows?
I want to drill down on this question of retribution because against your political opponents, because you've had opportunities to walk that back. And my question is this: are you prepared to say now that you will not use law enforcement to punish or prosecute your political opponents?
Excuse me. That's what they're using on me.
Okay, so your stance is that they started
before you start this.
Yeah, I got it.
Howie, that's what they're using on me. I've got DAs. I've got everybody. They look at me. There's never been anything like this. The biggest case was the one down in Florida, and I beat it 100%. I won the case because we had number one, a brilliant judge and a judge that moved rather rapidly, and I won the case. By the way, Biden had almost the same case, but he didn't have the Presidential Records Act because he wasn't the president, just to finish. And he got off on the basis that he's incompetent, essentially that he's incompetent. And it was a strange ruling because they said, number one, he's incompetent, so he's not going to be, but the prosecutor actually said he's guilty, but he's incompetent. But they didn't say he couldn't be president anymore. That was his bigger problem for not being president. How can you not represent yourself in court because you're incompetent, but you're allowed to represent the United States of America? The whole thing is crazy. But no, they have weaponized government against me.
But
And-
are you willing to use the same tactics?
No, I don't want to
using
do
it as a
that
just-
because that's a bad thing for the country. I don't want to do that. I don't know who said. I haven't said that I would, but they have done it. I've got attorney generals, DAs. They're all.
Right.
You take a look in Atlanta.
You're heavily
with Fannie.
investigated. Yeah.
They
With
went
Fannie
and
Willis.
met with them. It's all coming out of the Justice Department. They have done something never done in this country before. Now, it's been done in a lot of other countries, third world countries, banana republics, but never done. So when you ask that question, you really have to start by saying, well, they've done it to you. No, I'm not looking to do it to them at all.
Okay, so he means
Because
that. And I would just sort of emphasize or punctuate that by telling you that he has specifically told me, as it related to Hillary Clinton, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that because, you know what, we're still the United States of America, and I get it sounds good on the campaign trail, but ultimately she was the wife of a president and she was my opponent in a heated election. I don't believe that that's where the country's going or should go. This came up again with one Kristen Welker in the Meet the Press
Let me
interview.
ask you this about
It's
January
amazing.
6th.
I wish you could be you have such potential. If you could be just non-biased, you hurt yourself so badly. I'm telling you, they deleted and destroyed all the evidence. Everyone knows it. And you slough it off like it doesn't mean anything.
No, I'm just saying they deny it. That's all I'm saying.
Kristen, if I did it, you would be standing up in that chair shouting at me. And you know what I'd do? I'd say, you got me. They have done something so illegal. They have a committee sworn to, and because it was so bad, the only reason they did it is because the testimony turned out to be in favor of me.
Yeah. So he was a little dig there to Kristen. But again, he's asked about whether or not he wants to move forward with
They're
retribution.
subsidizing Canada to the tune of over $100 billion a year.
Actually, that was on tariffs. I'll just paraphrase. So he was asked about whether or not he wanted to really seek revenge. And he said, no, you know what I want to do? I want to get the country back on stable footing, economically speaking. I do not want us to be suffering from this mass inflation. I want to make sure that our border's secure. These are the most important things to me. So again, he's a nice guy. So maybe I'm not so nice because I still look at this. I actually am really nice. And this comes from a good place when I say this. I mean this. I look at this and say, if it could happen to him, it could happen to anyone. And part of the reason nobody wants to be in politics or run for political office is because of this sort of vengeance. You know, you're going to go after your enemy with everything you got. That's not okay. And we have to deter people, including rabid AGs like Letitia James, from doing that. As the court well knows, this is exactly why they're saying, wait a second, how is it that it could get this far out? How is it that we could be in this situation? We need some guardrails. We need some lines drawn in the sand. Listen to them. They're admitting it.
Back to Justice Moulton's point about line drawing, because I do think that is very important in this case. You know the history of this statute. It's passed under then AG Javits, and then was really amplified by AG Lefkowitz over the years. And when I went back and read the bill jackets, the common thread was always we need greater power. The AG needs greater powers as the people's lawyer to protect consumers, civil rights, and the environment. And so again, with that sort of historical backdrop to this law, how do we draw a line or at least put up some guardrails to know when the AG is operating well within her admittedly broad sphere of 6312, and when she is going into an area that wasn't intended for her jurisdiction?
Right? We need guardrails. So that has to happen some way. I think that you can teach by example by disbarring Letitia James, by forcing the resignation of Alvin Bragg and Fani Willis, Fani, however you want to say it. Well, as I said, Fani is going to probably find her Fanny in jail before she even gets to the point where she might be able to resign or be disbarred because she's refusing to comply with the subpoena. Great. So we've got to actually streamline this so that we're protecting the nation, the country, from turning into a banana republic. And let me tell you, we are well on the way. We are well on our way thanks to all of these clowns. It's really, really pretty despicable. Quick word, quick shout out for a company called Bunker. Have you ever heard of Bunker? I'll tell you, do you ever have the feeling that you're being surveilled, or maybe you're hesitating to share things of interest via text message or an email with your friends and loved ones? Heck, look what just happened to Pete, you know? His email from his mom like resurfaces in the New York Times. Anyway, recently outspoken parents at PTA meetings, Catholic Americans have been labeled as domestic terrorists by the FBI, and these types of labels can be allowed to use the government to surveil its citizens and others who live abroad without legal due process. Fortunately, the founders of Bunker created an app to uphold people's rights. Bunker is not beholden to any third-party corporation, investor, or government. Bunker deeply believes that privacy is a human right and that everyone on earth deserves bank-level security. Bunker provides you with protection from state and corporate surveillance as well as cyber criminals. It includes a completely secure and private messenger, a robust password manager, secure cloud storage for your files and for your documents. Bunker is built to uphold the rights of the people and protect them from cyber crimes. And you can get this today on the App Store or Play Store today. Just use my name. It'll get you 25% off, 25% off at Bunker today. Code word Trish, right? All right, let's look at what's going on over at CNN. Ooh, CNN now seemingly being called out by Elon Musk and Community Notes on X for this little report done by one Clarissa Ward. They're saying that somehow this is fake news. Let's take a look.
After 3 months in a windowless cell, he can finally see the sky. My God, the light, he says. Oh God, there is light. My God, there is light.
Okay, so it goes on for another 2.5 minutes, right? Oh God, there is light, there is life. And he's all excited because he's finally been freed from prison there, I believe in Damascus. So what's at issue now is that a former detainee in Syria that, by the way, has no use for al-Assad, is saying that this doesn't look entirely right to him. So CNN is really proud of this reporting. They're saying this is an extraordinary moment. They got to witness this Syrian prisoner being freed from this secret prison. Isn't it wonderful? You know, he was there without food, water, or light. And he was actually unaware that Bashar al-Assad's regime had fallen. And so isn't it terrific that she was on the ground and was able to capture all this? But rather than just, you know, taking it at face value, the Community Notes community decided to take a closer, hard look at it. And that's why if you look at this tweet, there's actually a Community Notes addendum that's been added saying Syrian former detainee notes inconsistencies. Communal cells were not used for individual prisoners. The cell appears unusually clean, and the prisoner's energy level seems inconsistent with claims of a 5-day water deprivation. So, kind of interesting. I mean, this is the last thing CNN needs right about now. Look, reporters have been duped before. I do believe she used to work for CBS, and CBS ran into these things, right? Remember? Dan Rather actually had to leave because of it. Lara Logan also wound up getting duped in one story there. And so, you know, they've had some situations, and Clarissa, could she have been duped here? It's something to think about. And you know what? We wouldn't have really thought about it before if we didn't have something like X out there. This guy is saying, his name is Hassan Akkad. I was detained twice in Syria. I think this is staged. CNN should investigate. I'm happy to be proven wrong. She had said, in nearly 20 years as a journalist, this is one of the most extraordinary moments I have witnessed. But he's saying, no, I think it was staged. Now, why should we trust him, you say? I don't know. I mean, we don't know a lot about him other than he had been in prison in Syria himself, and he seems to have gone on to work in journalism and in film, etc. And he's got some sort of lofty Twitter followers, including J.K. Rowling, including Barry Weiss. Anyway, he's writing that individuals were never locked in communal cells. That never happens, he writes. In detention centers, none of the clips surfaced of people being released showed a single person in a communal cell. I watched every single clip. The cell looks too clean. There were no discarded clothes, bags, bread, bottles of water, other blankets, nothing. First thing he said is, I want to drink water, which means he had no water for the last 5 days because, again, I don't see any bottles in the cell. He has too much energy, he writes, for someone who had had no water for 5 days. Again, he says, look, I'm happy to be proven wrong, but the clips we watch of all the detainees being released are horrifying. If this turns out to be staged, it should be extremely unethical and insulting, and Clarissa should apologize. So again, was she duped? This guy grew up there in Syria. He's originally from Damascus, and worked as an English teacher and a photographer. He, in 2011, as the protests in Syria against Bashar al-Assad grew, he joined and filmed the demonstrations, and in response to that, the authorities arrested him, beat him, so he had been part of in one of those prisons and had been incarcerated by Bashar al-Assad. So he has talked about his systemic torture there, the Assad regime's horrific stuff, and he's not buying it. So I think it's just very interesting. It's like this new day and age, right, where we can suddenly have an open dialogue where we can dispute what we're seeing, and that's healthy. It's really healthy because we shouldn't just automatically take CNN's word for it. We should have a broader sort of ability to vet facts, and that's what we're seeing. So again, I guess another win, but we'll see. I'm with him. I'd be happy to be proven wrong, but I think it's interesting to have this come up for debate. Let's hope that CNN did not get duped. I don't think I'd go so far as to say that she staged this. I know you guys have no use for CNN or CBS or any of it, but I don't think she'd actually do that. I think perhaps somebody else duped her in this process, and that's what's concerning. I want to get to just the idiocy of the overall media right now, especially as it relates to this sad tragedy with United Healthcare. We got Jay-Z to talk about, but first, quick shout out, because Christmas is coming. For the shop, for the Trish Regan shop, you can go to trishregan.shop. You can get all of my merch or paraphernalia or whatever you want to call it, hats, t-shirts, mugs. Live for your dad. That's what I drink my coffee out of every single morning. So go check that out. You can help support the show there at trishregan.shop. Okay, AOC. She's weighing in on this whole United Healthcare thing. And of course, they all want full-on, subsidized, socialist-style healthcare. It's something that's a passion of Warren's as well. And so we're seeing them come out and react sort of in funny ways because on the one hand, you got to be sympathetic to the fact that the guy that was murdered in cold blood is a father, is a human being, and yet they're all out there kind of acting like, well, he kind of had it coming because the health insurance industry is so lousy. I'm sorry, that's not how we do things. No, that's how Antifa does things, okay? That's how the radicals do things. We actually vote people out like we just did, and we're about to vote you out, AOC, and we're about to vote you out, Elizabeth Warren. But here's AOC saying, okay, I'm not condoning violence, but watch.
Taken from a diagnosis. And I think that this collective American experience, which is so twisted to have in the wealthiest nation in the world, all of that pain that people have experienced is being concentrated on this event. And it's really important that we take a step back. This is not to comment, and this is not to say that an act of violence is justified. But I think for anyone who is confused or shocked or appalled, they need to understand that people interpret and feel and experience denied claims as an act of violence against them. People go homeless over the financial devastation of a diagnosis that doesn't get addressed, or the amount that they're going to have to cover with a surprise bill and things like that. And when we kind of talk about how systems are violent in this country, in this passive way, our privatized healthcare system is like that for a huge amount of Americans. I mean, I did not have health insurance until I got elected to Congress. I was running, when I first ran for Congress, I had to sit in a free clinic while waiting.
Okay. I think we've heard that story before from her. So she didn't have health insurance. I guess the bartending job didn't give you health insurance. And what happened to Obamacare, AOC? I thought Obamacare was going to solve everything. Apparently it didn't. Apparently it made the situation, believe it or not, worse. So I think the problem here is while we can have a realistic and worthwhile and healthy debate about how do we solve for these insurance companies, you have a few too many people out there sort of suggesting that somehow he had it coming to him because he worked at a health insurance company.
We've been talking a lot about this Luigi Mangione.
Let's go forward. Here's, by the way, Joy Reid was doing the exact same thing. Let's listen to Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah.
And what happens when you turn this into the billionaires run it all is they get the opportunity to squeeze every last penny.
Yeah.
And look, we'll say it over and over. Violence is never the answer. This guy gets a trial who's allegedly killed the CEO of United Health. But you can only push people so far. And then they start to take matters into their own hands.
Yeah.
Okay, so there, is this a threat? It almost sounds like a threat, like Elizabeth Warren's like, okay, well, this is what you got coming to you. And of course, you get The View piling on as well.
There are things we can fool with and things we can't. Healthcare is one of those things that you shouldn't be able to fool with. And insurance companies who you pay, I pay into my insurance, you pay into your insurance. I don't understand. If I don't go to the hospital for a whole year, where's my money? Why don't you give me the money back? Then you don't have to worry about it. Because I feel like, I said this, okay.
We got Bill coming on.
I know we got Bill coming. But
apparently she doesn't understand how the insurance industry works. Okay, so the insurance industry works by hoping that they have more healthy people they're covering than sick people. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect, but to link these two, that's where we're getting into some sketchy territory. This stupid former Washington, she's stupid too, right? The ABC lady, the Whoopi Goldberg, the things that come out of her mouth, it's clear there's not a lot of connectivity up there, but this one is really giving new meaning to the word ditz. She goes on with Piers Morgan. Some of you, if you watch the show, you've seen this because I played this before for you, but I'm blown away by it because she talks about how joyful she was when this guy got killed. And you just have to remember, this is the sentiment of these lefty, anarchy-driven reporters, members of the media. This is not good.
I disagree. Let's move to the other story because Taylor's been waiting patiently here. So this issue of Brian Thompson, one of the top healthcare executives in the country, I'm just curious why your first reaction would be to his cold-blooded execution. And people wonder why we want these executives dead. And then you later commented when people were giving you a lot of blowback, I'm not alone, you said. Healthcare executive down with party balloons was on a next post that you commented on. Why would you be in such a celebratory mood about the execution of another human being? Aren't you supposed to be on the caring, sharing left where, you believe in the sanctity of life?
I do believe in the sanctity of life. And I think that's why I felt, along with so many other Americans, joy, unfortunately, because it feels like...
Seriously? Joy at a man's execution?
Maybe not joy, but certainly not empathy. Because again,
we're watching the footage. How can this make you joyful? This guy's a husband, he's a father, and he's being gunned down in the middle of Manhattan. Why does that make you joyful?
Thousands of Americans that be murdered. So are the tens of thousands of Americans, innocent Americans, who died because greedy health insurance executives like this one push policies of denying care to the most vulnerable people. And the many millions of Americans that have watched people that I care about suffer and in some cases die because of lack of health care.
So should they all be killed then? Should they all be killed, these healthcare executives? Would that make you even more joyful?
No.
Way to go, Piers Morgan. I mean, I say she's ditzy, right? Because what a choice of words. And then when she's asked about it, yeah, okay, maybe not joyful, but certainly lack of empathy. You gotta have some empathy. He's a husband, he's a father. Can you not have anything to feel for somebody? Is it fair that he was just gunned down because we don't like? Okay, how many things do we not like? Do we just run around and just knock people off because we don't like the way things are? No. Okay, that is not how it works, ladies and gentlemen. And what's frightening to me and scary to me is this reminds me of the Trump attacks, right? We don't like Trump, therefore we're just gonna bash him and bash him and bash him and warn everybody he's the next Hitler. And then, maybe somebody will do something crazy, which by the way, was attempted twice. And they can justify it in their heads. And that's what's, I think, really putting us in a treacherous, dangerous spot. You know who gets that? One, Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg, forking over the cash, what do you know, for the inaugural fund. $1 million he's donating. This is the head of Meta, the founder of Facebook. He's given all this money. I guess he's seen the handwriting on the wall, right? When Donald Trump talked about him shortly before getting elected with my former colleague, Maria Bartiromo. Here she is in an interview with him. I want you to hear what he said about Zuckerberg calling him after that attempt on his life.
Said that the picture wasn't altered. At first they said it was altered, and then they said, no, it was a bug, it was a mistake.
Mark
so my
Zuckerberg,
point is
right.
These companies would not allow any information out about what happened.
So Mark Zuckerberg called me. First of all, he called me a few times. He called me after the event, and he said that was really amazing. It was very brave. And, and he actually announced he's not going to support a Democrat because he can't, because he respected me for what I did that day. I think what I did maybe was to me, it was a normal response. But I was called by Mark Zuckerberg yesterday, the day before, on this same subject. And he actually apologized. He said they made a mistake, et cetera, and they're correcting the mistake. Google, nobody called from Google. One of the things, like doing a show like yours, your show, you see it on Fox. But where you really see it is all over the place. They take clips of your show that you're doing right now with me. And if I do a good job, they're going to vote for me. They're going to vote for me because it's not just on Fox. It's on Fox is a smaller part of it. You're on all over those little beautiful cell phones. You're all over the place. You have a product. You have a great product. You have a great brand.
He's talking about, like all these changes that are here and that people are responding to him because of who he is and because he wants to accomplish. But getting back to Mark for a moment and the $1 million that he's donating, I'm telling you, I think that Mark kind of had this come to Jesus moment, if you would, because when he sat down with Emily Chang at Bloomberg, he was like, that was pretty amazing.
I mean, on a personal note, it's, seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life. But look, I mean, it's, and I think, look, it's, at some level as an American, it's like hard to not get kind of emotional about that spirit and that fight. And I think that's why a lot of people like the guy.
I think it's probably true. Hey, quick shout out for one of our great sponsors, Balance of Nature. Use code word Trish. It's December, I get it, hard to stay on your diet, lots of fun parties to go to going into the new year. Make sure that you take care of yourself first. Numero uno comes first. Make sure you get your vitamins. For me, it's making sure that I keep vitamin D levels up, for example, among other things. So I take my Balance of Nature fruits and veggies every single day. You can call them at 1-800-246-8751, 1-800-246-8751, or you can just go to balanceofnature.com, code word Trish. TRISH, just type in my name. By the way, there's tons of testimonials. You'll get to read them all. You'll see them all there about how wonderful Balance of Nature is. I can tell you my own testimonial. I like it very much and credit my health. So far, so good this winter, okay? So far, so good with Balance of Nature, balanceofnature.com. Speaking of taking care of numero uno, while you're taking care of numero uno and you're thinking about your goals for the future, go check out 76 Research, my own financial research company. You see, these are some of our top picks in the portfolio. Top pick in the financials portfolio up 37%, another up 35%, energy up 30%. There's a lot happening right now, a lot of really good stuff happening, because we got a booming economy, do we not? I mean, thank goodness Donald Trump is coming in. Thank goodness. He rang the bell there on the stock exchange this morning. I'm telling you, he wants lower taxes, less regulation, and he's embracing technology and embracing crypto in really cool, innovative ways. Things are changing, including the educational environment. So I want to tell you about Grand Canyon University. Grand Canyon University, it's a private Christian university, beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. And at that university, they believe that we're endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. GCU believes in equal opportunity, and the American dream starts with purpose. GCU equips you to serve others in ways that promote human flourishing and create a ripple effect of transformation for generations to come. So by honoring your career calling, your impact with your family, your friends, and your community, you can do it all there together there at Grand Canyon University. Change the world for good by putting others before yourself so that you can help glorify God. Whether your pursuit is a bachelor's degree, a master's, a doctoral, GCU's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. They have 350 programs. Wow. So GCU is meeting you where you are, providing a path to help you fulfill your dreams. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Let it flourish. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. It's private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. You know what I'm going to do, guys? And if you're not looking for education, maybe someone in your family is, go to gcu, Grand Canyon University.edu. Okay, so there we go. You can see it right there. I'm just adding it to the screen. Go check them out today, gcu.edu. They're doing really, really, really good stuff. Okay, we have an update for you on a story that we've been following, coming to us right now from the Pentagon. John Kirby just speaking moments ago about those drones, right? You've seen the drones, all the drones flying around the sky off the coast of New Jersey, apparently interacting with each other. This video that you're looking at is actually a time-lapse video, and people are like, whoa, 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 what are those? They're saying that these are like the size of SUVs. And then you had Jeff Van Drew, who's the congressman from New Jersey, saying some really spooky stuff to Fox just yesterday. Listen to this.
Sky that are the size of an SUV over any city, over any state. It's an invasion of our airspace. In focus now, Republican Congressman Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey, member of the House Judiciary Committee on the Hill right now. How do you address this at this point?
Well, here's the real deal, Harris. You know, I'm also on the Transportation Committee, on the Aviation Subcommittee, and I've gotten to know people. And from very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources, I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly. Now, you know, we know there was a probability. It could have been our own government. We know it's
okay, so that's Congressman Jeff Van Drew. So that's created a little bit of a stir, as you can imagine, and there's lots of questions. So John Kirby from the Pentagon had to come out and address this because apparently nobody knows what the heck these things are.
Using very sophisticated electronic detection technologies provided by federal authorities, we have not been able to, and neither have state or local law enforcement authorities, corroborate any of the reported visual sightings. To the contrary, upon review of available imagery, it appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft that are being operated lawfully. The United States Coast Guard is providing support to the state of New Jersey and has confirmed that there is no evidence of any foreign-based involvement from coastal vessels. And importantly, there are no reported or confirmed drone sightings in any restricted airspace. Now, that said, We certainly take seriously the threat that can be posed by unmanned aircraft systems, which is why law enforcement and other agencies continue to support New Jersey and investigate the reports, even though they have uncovered no malicious activity or intent at this particular stage. While there is no known malicious activity occurring, the reported sightings there do, however, highlight a gap in authorities. And so we urge Congress to pass important legislation that will extend and expand existing counter-drone authorities so that we are better prepared to identify and mitigate any potential threats to airports or other critical infrastructure, and so that state and local authorities are provided all the tools that they need to respond to such threats as well.
Satisfied? What do you think? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. I'll tell you, I'm wondering when they're going to get to the bottom of this one.
Bro, you gotta be kidding me. Don't tell me I'm sitting here on this ferry and I see a slave on by. No way. Nah. No. Yo. This reindeer's on the front of it. Oh my God. Nah. Oh my God, do you see?
Okay, where's the Pentagon when we need them? Looks like Santa's hanging out right over the Statue of Liberty. How do you like that? We have so much more to get to. I'm going to save it for tomorrow because I want to get into this Jay-Z thing and, you know, Diddy thing. I mean, like, I hate to get into it, but we have to get into it. We have to get into it. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to also talk about Jill Biden sort of dissing Kamala in a public ceremony. We'll get to that. And one of my favorite people at the Daily Wire is actually leaving. We'll talk about that as well. So stay tuned. Make sure you hit the alarm, the bell, so you know when I'm live. I'll see you right back here. It's a very big day. As Peace of My Mind knows, I'm looking at his comments. Very big day tomorrow. So make sure you tune in. See you then.